NDE Testimony Jesus Encounter. My name is Ruth Navarro. I'm 29 years old, and until that day, I was a licensed therapist in Antipolo. People came to me for healing, for clarity, for comfort. I was supposed to be the one who helped them find peace. But what no one knew was that inside me, I was drowning. It was July 4th, 2025, a Thursday. I remember the sky was gray, the air was heavy, like something unseen was pressing down on the whole world. I was in session with a young woman, someone who had been struggling with panic attacks and a fear of dying. I was trying to keep her calm, but I couldn't explain why my own heart was starting to race. My chest felt tight, my hands were cold, and then everything went silent. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't come out. I tried to stand, but my body wouldn't move. The walls began to shimmer. Her voice faded into static. The room twisted like smoke, and then nothing. Except I was still there. I was above myself. Looking down, I could see my body sitting there, still in the chair. My eyes open but empty. She was screaming. Someone called for help, but none of that touched me anymore. I was outside of time, floating, weightless, watching the scene like it belonged to someone else. And that's when the fear hit me. Not because I was dead, but because I wasn't sure where I was going. All around me was darkness. Not evil, not cold, just endless, unknowable. Darkness, but in the middle of it was a vibration, a hum, a sound not from this earth. It didn't come from outside, it came from within, like the echo of a voice I forgot I once knew. Then suddenly, light. Not a beam, not a flash, more like a presence, a warmth that wrapped around the edges of my soul. And in the center of that light, I heard him. Ruth, you're not invisible. You're not broken. You're not lost. You have just been running from the love I have always had for you. I couldn't stop crying, not out of sadness, but recognition, like something inside me had been asleep for years and suddenly woke up. I had always believed in science, psychology, logic. I told people faith was just the brain's way of coping. But in that moment, standing outside my own life, hearing that voice, all my logic collapsed. I felt held completely by something I had spent years denying. Then I saw it, the earth, but not from space, from spirit. It was alive, pulsing, glowing, but cracked. Deep fractures ran across it, like a wounded heart. I saw people, billions of them, walking with no light in their eyes, asleep, but moving, chasing things that didn't matter. And I knew something was coming, a shaking, a splitting, a cosmic interruption. And it all started on July 4th. That was the day I died, but it was also the day I finally heard the truth, and my soul began to live. Spiritual awakening. After I heard his voice, everything shifted. The darkness around me didn't vanish. It cracked, like glass breaking under pressure. And behind that broken veil was something I still struggle to describe. It wasn't heaven, not yet. It was something in between, like a corridor between realities, a realm of pure energy and pure intention. I felt myself being pulled, not by force but by invitation, as if something deep inside me already knew the way. Then I saw them, souls, hundreds, thousands, suspended in what looked like clear chambers, like glass orbs, floating in space, each one glowing with a soft light. But most of them were flickering, dim, some almost completely dark, and the closer I got, the more I could see their faces. Some were crying, others looked confused. Many were just still, frozen in fear, stuck in a loop of memory, of regret, of questions that had never been answered. Then one of the orbs cracked open, and I was drawn to it. Inside was a woman, probably in her 30s, beautiful but broken. She was repeating the same words over and over. I was enough, wasn't I? I did everything they asked. I followed every rule. Why do I still feel empty? Suddenly, I could feel her pain like it was my own. Many souls arrive here still carrying the weight of their false identities. They lived to be accepted, but never truly lived. They built their lives on what others told them they were, instead of who I made them to be. I couldn't breathe, not because there was no air, but because the truth was overwhelming. I realized I had been doing the same, living to prove, to perform, to protect an image, and now that image had shattered. I looked down at my own hands, but they weren't hands anymore. My body had become light, transparent, like a moving flame, but I still had awareness, still had memory, and now I had understanding. The chamber began to shift again, and this time I was pulled upward, faster than light, through a tunnel made of stars, through voices, sounds, visions, until suddenly I was standing floating on what felt like the edge of a vast living library. Scrolls of light floated everywhere. Some moved like rivers, others hovered still in midair, pulsing. Each one felt sacred. These are the soul codes, records of who you were meant to be, before the noise of the world rewrote your truth. I wanted to reach for one, but my hand passed through it. Not yet, I felt him say. First, I had to see something else. The sky around me grew dark again, but this time it was not empty. It was filled with motion, celestial patterns, a planetary dance, and then I saw it. Two orbs, one soft golden and glowing, the other sharp electric blue moving rapidly toward alignment. And when they touched, the entire space rippled, Venus and Uranus. Even in that spiritual place, I knew what I was witnessing. A divine collision, a holy disturbance. Something was changing, and not just in the sky, but in the DNA of humanity itself. This alignment is not coincidence. It is a signal, a heavenly trumpet, calling every soul to awaken, to shake free from dead systems, false worth, broken love, and return to me. And then, images. They flashed like lightning across my vision. People glued to their phones, hearts hollow, competing, chasing nothing. Churches filled with people, but asleep. Their hands raised, but their hearts far away. Children crying alone as their parents scrolled through distractions. Lovers living under one roof, but miles apart in soul. A wave of sorrow hit me, but then I saw the remnant, a small group, scattered all over the earth. Some were praying, others fasting, some just walking barefoot on grass, tears in their eyes, whispering the name of Jesus with everything they had left. And in the heavens, their prayers became like stars, punching holes in the darkness. The world is not ending, but it is being divided by light and by shadow. Those who choose me will carry my light into the storm. They will not be shaken. I wanted to cry again, but this time not from fear, from reverence. I suddenly understood that what was coming on July 4th wasn't just an event. It was a doorway, a spiritual filter, and every soul, including mine, would have to choose. The feeling in my chest grew heavier, like the weight of destiny pressing down. And then he said something that burned into me forever. You must go back, Ruth. You must tell them, not just with words, but with fire. The fire had already begun. It wasn't around me, it was inside me, and it was about to carry me back to a world that would never look the same again. Everything inside me was burning, not with pain but with purpose. It was as if the fire of heaven had crawled into the hollow places of my soul, and was now consuming every lie I had ever believed about myself, about God, about this world. And in that holy silence he spoke again. Before you return, you must understand what's coming. Not everyone will hear, but those who do will be forever changed. The stars above me rearranged like a living blueprint, and suddenly, I wasn't just in one place anymore. I was seeing the earth from many angles: cities, forests, houses, screens, churches. And then he began to reveal them, one by one. The 9 warnings, the 9 traps. The first was silence. Not holy silence, but the silence of spiritual suppression. I saw people medicating their souls, not with prayer or truth, but with pills, distractions, routines. They were ignoring the cries of their own bodies, their own spirits. So, when I called to my children through their weakness, through their tears, even through their pain, they numb me out. They call it stress, but it is my whisper. They call it anxiety, but it is my awakening. The second was noise. I saw families sitting around dinner tables, but everyone was arguing. No listening, just fighting over politics, gender money doctrine. It was constant static emotional pollution. In this window of alignment, the soul becomes porous. Whatever you absorb becomes you. If you drink poison in this hour, it will stain your light. The third was panic. I saw people quitting jobs in chaos, walking away from marriages in haste, deleting their dreams because of one difficult day, rash choices made in emotional storms. I am revealing what no longer fits, but I am not telling them to destroy. I am telling them to pause, to breathe, to seek me before they leap into darkness. The fourth trap was control. People forcing manifestations, demanding instant results, manipulating others in the name of vision or alignment. Even in churches, I saw leaders trying to force revival, while ignoring the quiet hurting ones in the back rows. I do not ride on ambition. I move on surrender. They are chasing power when I'm calling them to peace. The fifth was desperation. I saw people running back to toxic relationships, calling it closure. Others posting selfies for validation, measuring their worth in likes. Teenagers in their rooms, asking the void, do I matter? I placed eternal value in them, but they keep asking mirrors made by men to tell them who they are. Then came the sixth. Synchronicities, signs, numbers, dreams, divine whispers. But most people dismissed them. They said, it's just coincidence, just my imagination, while their angels were shouting in the spirit. They asked for my voice, and when I answered in symbols, they called me superstition. Yet even the stars obey me. I speak in patterns, in timing, in wonder, but their ears are tuned only to fear. The seventh was consumption. I saw people binging food news, gossip, dark music, dirty content, anything to fill the silence. But it was poisoning them, spiritually, emotionally, energetically. Their souls were bloated, but starving. What they feed their mind becomes their prayer. What they feed their body becomes their altar. They think it doesn't matter. But even the smallest choice echoes in eternity. The eighth was disconnection. Even spiritual people were trapped. They were meditating for hours, lost in stars and planets, but hadn't touched the ground in days. No prayer, no stillness, no earth. I created both heaven and soil. I breathed through trees and rivers. They chase the cosmic, but ignore the cross. They reach for stars, but forget the nail-scarred hands holding them. And finally, the ninth. It wasn't an action. It was a perspective. People viewing the coming days as a punishment, a threat, a countdown to doom. I saw panic in the eyes of many even believers. They feared judgment, collapse, wrath, but Jesus wept. They mistake my shaking for punishment, but it is mercy. It is a holy interruption before the end. This is not the final blow. It is the final invitation. That line pierced me. The final invitation. And I knew this alignment, this cosmic gateway, wasn't about stars colliding. It was about hearts deciding. Would we run deeper into the illusion, or finally come home? Then I saw a gate, wide open, made of living light, and through it, souls were walking radiant, burning alive. But others kept walking in circles, trapped in mirrors, and I heard him say one more thing. Ruth, your generation stands between fire and freedom. Tell them. Tell them to stop running. Tell them, I still wait. I couldn't speak. I just wept. Because everything he showed me was true. And soon, I would carry it all back into the world. I didn't want to come back. I'll be honest. After everything I had seen, everything I had heard, part of me wanted to stay in that place forever. There was no fear there, no shame, no need to prove anything. Just peace, just purpose, just presence. But peace is not the absence of pain. Sometimes, it's the power to walk back into it, carrying something holy. And then, he turned to me. I didn't see his face fully. It was more like light within light, love within love. But somehow I knew exactly where his eyes would be, and they were locked onto mine. Ruth, the world will not believe what they cannot feel, but they will feel what you carry. If your words come from fire, they will burn away the lies. If your silence comes from me, it will speak louder than noise. My soul trembled. Me, I was just a therapist from Antipolo, a former atheist who mocked people with too much faith. I wasn't holy. I wasn't qualified. I didn't even know if people would believe me. I do not send the qualified. I qualify the ones I send. I fell to my knees. Not because I was forced, but because I was so overwhelmed by the weight of love and responsibility. He stretched out his hand, and something flowed from him into me. I can only describe it as memory, but not my memory. His. Suddenly, I felt the pain of a girl in Quezon City, sitting alone on her birthday while her parents scrolled on their phones. I felt the anxiety of a young man in Cebu, working 3 jobs but unable to sleep at night because he fears hell. I saw a preacher in Mindanao, crying in secret because he no longer feels the presence of God, but still stands every Sunday pretending he does. And then I felt my own mother, praying for me, year after year, whispering, Lord, bring her home, while I mocked her behind her back. And he said, Shh. Tell them, I have not forgotten their cries. Not one tear was wasted, not one prayer ignored, even the ones whispered through clenched teeth. I held every syllable. This wasn't just a mission. It was a rescue, a call to the ones who gave up, to the ones who still show up but no longer hope, to the ones who smile in public but bleed in the dark. I was returning, not just to testify, but to interrupt the sleep. Some will mock you, some will ignore you, but the ones who need it will awaken. And when they do, their ripple will reach others. And that's how the tide turns, one soul at a time. He then showed me my own life, not just the past, but the moments to come, conversations I would have, emails I would write, faces I would meet. Some would roll their eyes, but some would cry. Some would remember something they buried long ago, something holy, something real. And then, he said the words I will never forget. You don't return to save the world, you return to light a match. I will be the flame. I said yes, not with my mouth, but with my soul. And immediately, the light that had been around me rushed into me. It was like being filled with lightning and water and wind all at once. I felt the world begin to pull me back. The sound of machines, a beeping, a woman crying, my body heavy, stiff, bruised, but alive. But even as I returned, I wasn't the same. A part of me still burns. That's why I'm telling you this now. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's urgent. You need to know there is still time. You are not forgotten. And what's coming is not the end, but the unveiling. And yes, some will think I'm crazy, but I would rather be called crazy for choosing faith than remain silent while the world walks blindfolded toward fire. Because now I know, this isn't just about me, it's about you too. You who are listening. You who've been feeling like something's coming. You who wake up at 3 a.m. with a heaviness you can't explain. It's not coincidence. You've been chosen. Before I returned, Jesus showed me what I can only describe as the architecture of the unseen. It was like the curtain between dimensions had been pulled back, and I was staring into the nervous system of creation itself. Everything, every person, tree, thought, prayer was connected by threads of light. Some were bright, alive, flowing with color and vibration. Others were dim, tangled, or completely cut off. And through all of it ran rhythm, pulse, frequency. In everything I made carries sound, carries light. Even your pain vibrates. Every word, every thought is a code, and the earth is listening. I was stunned. I had never imagined that my choices, my emotions, could echo beyond my body, but he showed me. Each time someone forgave, light was released. Each time someone hated, a dark cloud spread. Every act of kindness, every prayer whispered alone in a room, caused ripples, not metaphorical ripples, actual waves in the field of heaven. So, that is why the battle is so fierce. The enemy doesn't need your body. He wants your frequency. If he can lower your light, he can distort your purpose. Then I saw it. The earth itself shaking, not from natural disaster, but from a kind of spiritual overload. Too much static, too many signals of fear, anger, shame, rising like smoke from the hearts of men. The planet wasn't just warming, it was suffocating. And in the middle of it all, I saw the alignment. Venus and Uranus, two radiant bodies, moving toward collision. One golden and warm, carrying the codes of worth, desire, beauty. The other electric, wild, unpredictable, pulsing with divine disruption. When they met, a blast of energy exploded through the spiritual field of Earth. It wasn't random, it was engineered. This is not astrology, it is architecture. The heavens declare my timings, my invitations, my awakenings. This alignment is a trumpet, a gateway. I saw people being pulled into it, some willingly, tears in their eyes, letting go of the past, reaching for light. Others resisted, their hands clinging to comfort, routine, addiction. They screamed, not from pain but from fear of change. And I understood. The shift wasn't about punishment, it was about resonance. Those who were ready to resonate with truth, with love, with him, were being elevated, their souls vibrating at a higher pattern, clearer, brighter. But those still bound to the old, to the noise, to the lies, would feel the friction, the dissonance, the burn. This is why so many feel exhausted, anxious, lost. It is not sickness, it is alignment. Their bodies are fighting against what their spirits are ready to receive. I remembered my own body, the panic attacks I had before I died, the sleepless nights, the sudden waves of emotion. It wasn't psychological, it was spiritual interference. Jesus showed me a young boy in Manila, crying under his blanket, thinking he was broken. But in the spirit, his heart was glowing like fire. He was waking up before the world told him to stay asleep. The awakening has begun, but it is not loud. It is soft, gentle, like a breeze or a breath. Tell them to listen for me, not in the earthquake, but in the stillness. And then he opened my understanding. Even water had memory. Even tears carried frequency. He said, that's why he wept. Not because he lacked power, but because his tears carried the sound of mercy. And when they touched the ground, heaven moved. I felt it in my spirit, in my chest, in my bones. This isn't just the end of an age. It's a retuning of a planet, and we are either resisting the song or becoming the melody. Coming back was not what I expected. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't cinematic. It felt like being hurled from eternity into a cage of flesh that had forgotten how to breathe. There was no warning. 1 second I was in the presence of something sacred beyond words. In the next I was drowning in light and sound. The hospital lights were too bright. The beeping machines sounded like sirens. My lungs burned as if someone had slammed the door open in my chest. My body convulsed. My eyelids fluttered but refused to lift. My throat was on fire, and through all the chaos, I heard her, my mother. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Anak, anak, please, please come back. God, please don't take her. Please, Lord, please. Her sobs were shaking the edge of the universe, and something in me, something deeper than muscle or bone, answered her. I wasn't ready, but I was sent. As I gasped for breath, I felt the hand squeeze mine. Warm, shaking, real. And that was the moment I realized I had truly returned, but I didn't return the same. My body was mine, yes, but my spirit had been rewritten. There was something new pulsing inside my chest, not fear, not confusion, but light. It hummed beneath my skin like a silent promise, and as I lay in that hospital bed, unable to move, unable to speak, I realized the strangest thing of all. I felt safe. I felt known, and still, I was afraid. Not afraid of death anymore. No, that fear had died somewhere in the chambers of heaven. What haunted me now was the fear of living. How do you live in a world that hasn't seen what you've seen? How do you drink coffee, answer emails, go to work, after you've stood at the edge of forever? The noise, the rush, the small talk, it all felt hollow. Like cardboard cutouts in a room filled with fire, I watched nurses come and go, smiling, moving, measuring my vitals. But none of them knew that their energy left trails of light or shadows behind them. None of them knew that I could hear their souls, like faint whispers beneath their words. One nurse laughed politely when I opened my eyes, but inside I could feel her grief. She had lost someone recently. She wore her mask well, but the light inside her flickered. I wanted to reach out, to say something, but how could I explain? How do you tell someone that you just walked through the frequency field of creation, that you watched souls sleeping in glass, that you heard Jesus speak not with sound but with vibration, that your very cells now remember things your mind still struggles to hold? The second day after I woke up, I asked for a Bible. It shocked my mother. I hadn't touched a Bible in years. She didn't question it. She just wept again, this time from joy. I opened it at random. The first verse my eyes landed on was Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth, do you not perceive it? My hands trembled. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a signal. That night, as I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, I felt it again, the atmosphere bending. It was subtle, like pressure shifting before a storm. Not outside the room, but across the entire earth. I could feel it. The tension of something cosmic, something ancient, moving beneath the surface of the visible. Most people wouldn't notice. They'd blame it on the news, on stress, on hormones. But I knew better. Something had been triggered, not just in me, but in the planet itself. That Venus-Uranus alignment, it wasn't just astronomical. It was prophetic. It was a pulse from the throne of heaven, and it had begun rewiring everything. Jesus told me the world wasn't ending, but the illusion was. He said the shaking would come in waves, personal, political, planetary, and the ones who resisted the shift would feel it most. But those who surrendered would shine. I wasn't brought back to be safe. I wasn't brought back to go viral. I was brought back to burn, to be a living spark in a world gasping for light. And though I didn't know what to say yet, I knew that when the time came, the fire in me would speak, and someone, maybe just one person, would hear it and remember who they really are. The first time I opened my mouth to speak, nothing came out. I was sitting in my room, lights off, laptop open, microphone plugged in. My hands trembled above the keyboard, my heart louder than the silence around me. How do you begin a story like this? Hi, my name is Ruth and I died. No, too direct, too raw, too insane. I had rehearsed every possible introduction, every logical way to explain the unexplainable. But none of them were enough, because this wasn't a story. This was an invasion. Heaven had collided with Earth, and I was left standing in the wreckage, alive, changed, terrified, called. And then, I remembered what he told me. You don't need the perfect words. You need the flame. If you speak from fire, the ones I've prepared will feel it. So I pressed record, and I spoke. My voice was shaky at first, quiet, like stepping into a room I wasn't sure I belonged in. I talked about the moment my heart stopped, about watching my own body from above, about the darkness that wasn't empty, but waiting. I talked about the light, about his voice, about the burning, about the 9 warnings he showed me, and how each one is alive in the world right now, like smoke before a fire. I didn't try to make it poetic. I didn't quote theology. I just told the truth. The way I felt it. The way I survived it. When I finished, I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't edit it. I didn't script it. I didn't know what would happen, but I hit upload anyway. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. I felt like I had cracked open something ancient, like I'd placed a lamp on a hill, and somewhere out there in the dark, someone would see it. In the first hour, there were no views. Then 3, then 20, then 100, then thousands. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the comments. I thought I was crazy, but now I know I'm not alone. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. and I didn't know why. Until now. This made me cry. I've never felt Jesus like this before. One message said, I was going to end my life tonight. Then your video showed up. I heard him in your voice, thank you. I sat there, staring at that message, shaking, not from pride, from awe, from fear, holy fear, the kind that says, you are now responsible for what you carry. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just telling a story. I was stepping into a war of frequencies, of light versus noise, of presence versus performance, of truth versus everything else. And every word I spoke, every whisper of obedience, was not just being heard in the natural, it was echoing in the unseen, because now I knew. Darkness doesn't fear big churches or loud voices. It fears testimony, because testimony is proof. It is evidence. It is oxygen for the weary and a dagger to the lies. They will not all believe you. Some will mock you. Some will twist your words. But the hungry, the broken, the silent screamers in the night, they will hear me in your voice. You are not their answer, but you are my sign. That word sign, it stayed with me. I wasn't the solution. I was the signal. And the signal didn't need to be famous. It just needed to be faithful. I started getting emails from all over the world. People asking questions I couldn't always answer. People sharing their own encounters, dreams, strange spiritual shifts. I read each one with tears in my eyes because I realized we're not alone. There are thousands, millions maybe, feeling the same tremors, not religious hype, not conspiracy. Something real, something holy, a shift, a doorway, a warning wrapped in mercy, a voice, calling us to wake up, to remember, to return. This is what testimony does. It breaks the silence, it shakes the slumber. It reminds souls that they are more than data and dopamine. It reminds the forgotten that heaven still interrupts. And I, Ruth Navarro, will not be silent anymore. I will not waste what was given to me through blood and breath. I don't care if they laugh. I don't care if they leave. If even one person sees the fire in my words and lights their own, then in the whole journey was worth it. Because in a world full of shadows, I have chosen to be a voice. Not perfect, not polished, but burning, always burning. If you've made it this far, I need you to understand something. This wasn't just a story. This was a message, a warning, a whisper, a trumpet. And now, it's yours. You don't have to die like I did to wake up. You don't have to lose your breath to find your purpose. But you do have to choose, because everything is shifting, not just in the stars, but in the soul, in your body, in your dreams, in the way your spirit has been quietly screaming for more. That quiet ache you feel, the sense that something is coming, the tears that rise when no one's watching. They're not weakness, they're invitation. An invitation to remember who you really are, to come out of the sleep, to stop chasing what cannot satisfy, to turn down the volume of the world, and listen for the voice that still calls you by name. You are not made for fear. You are not made to perform. You are made to burn, to carry light, to reflect me. So I'm asking you now, with everything I have, don't let this pass like another video. Don't scroll away like this was just another spiritual moment. This is not entertainment. This is eternity knocking. You were born for this hour, not just to survive it, but to shape it. So if something in you stirred as you listened, if something trembled or wept or rose up with fire, then do something about it. Pray. Right now, doesn't have to be perfect, just honest, just real. Tell Jesus I'm ready. And if you need help walking this road, you're not alone. This space, this channel is filled with stories like mine. People who've seen the edge and come back with fire in their bones. So if this resonated with you, if you felt the breath of heaven in these words, I want to ask you to do 3 things. Not for numbers, not for clicks, but because this is how we spread the light. First, subscribe to this channel, not just to follow, but to belong. You are part of this family now. Second, like this video, not for the algorithm, but as a signal to heaven. A way of saying, yes, I receive. And third, leave a comment, tell your story, or just write one line, I choose light, because someone else will read it. Someone who's holding on by a thread. And your words might be the very rope that pulls them out. Don't underestimate the power of one voice, one flame, one act of obedience. I died for 8 minutes, but what I carry now will burn for eternity. So will yours. Choose light. Choose him. I'm Ruth Navarro, and I'm no longer afraid.